I'm about to teach you how to make a conjugate or Westside Barbell style program for strongman training. Now, what I'm about to teach you is exactly how Louis Simmons taught it to me personally. But if you have questions about conjugate, you have questions about the program, drop them in the comments and I'll cover it in more videos coming up. So also, like the video so I know I should make more of these, and maybe even subscribe to the channel if this is valuable. But let's get to the program. So you're going to train conjugate on a 4-day training week. Week 1 is going to be your dynamic effort upper. Day number 2 is going to be your max effort or heavy lower body day. Day number 4 is going to be your max effort or heavy upper body day. And day number 6 is going to be your dynamic effort lower. Now, Westside Barbell starts those on Monday. So you'd have a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday break, train Thursday, break Friday, train Saturday. But you can start day number 1 wherever you want on your calendar that works for you or allows you to hit your dynamic effort lower or your 6th day when you have access to implements, ideally. But how you organize that is up to you. So let's get into the days. Day number 1 is dynamic effort upper. So your first movement is very likely going to be a log press. If you've got an implement you need more practice work with or skill work with, you can use that. But typically you want to use a log. And you're going to follow a 3-week cycle doing that. Week number 1, you're going to use 50% of your 1 rep max. Week number 2, 55%. Week number 3, 60%. On all of those weeks, you're going to add 25% accommodating resistance, so bands or chains, at the top of your log. So if you have an 100-pound max log, your first week is going to be 50%, so 50 pounds on the log, with 25 pounds of bands or chains added to it, measured at the top, at lockout. And for that, you're going to be doing 8 sets of 3 on every single week. So the weight of the log is going to change, but your 25% accommodating resistance is static, and your 8 sets of 3 is static. From there, we're going to go into a heavy tricep dominant press. Overhead or flat, it doesn't matter, but something that hits your triceps really, really hard. Could be a board press or an overhead lockout as 2 examples, but you can choose whatever makes sense for you. For that, you're doing 3 to 6 sets of 6 to 8 reps. Now, if you're new to training in this style, or you're not used to a lot of volume in your program, for all of the sets and reps I give, start on the lower end and build up the volume over time. But you're gonna have to base that on where you're coming from and what you're used to. Next, we're going into 3 to 6 sets of 8 to 12 reps on both a vertical and horizontal pull. So a horizontal pull is gonna be a rowing motion, and a vertical pull is gonna be a pull down or pull up. You're gonna do both of those. So we're now 4 exercises in: overhead, heavy triceps, rowing, and vertical pulling. Next, you're gonna do 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 15 reps on a shoulder isolation movement, an arm isolation movement, and a rear delt movement. For arms, you can choose biceps or triceps. It's gonna be up to you depending on where your biggest weakness is. For most people, it's gonna be triceps. Shoulders, either front raise or lateral raise, rear delts, whatever you feel. But you're doing 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 15 reps of all of those. And that's day number 1. Moving into day number 2, it is your max effort or heavy lower body day. So you're gonna pick a heavy lower body movement. This could be a squat variation, a deadlift variation, a good morning variation. Those are my personal favorites. There's other things you could do in terms of strongman lifts. You could have stone in there if you wanted it. But typically if you're in the gym, squat, deadlift, good morning variations. You're gonna build up to a 3 to 5 rep max on that variation. When you're done that, so you've hit your top set of 5 and you did a 200-pound good morning for 5 or 4 or 3, you get the idea. 3 to 5 rep max. You're gonna take that weight, take 25 to 30% off and do 1 rep out set with that weight. And you wanna record both of these because over time, you're gonna try to break your record for your 3 to 5 rep max, but you're also gonna try to beat your rep record. Next, we're into the accessory work. So you're gonna pick a heavy posterior chain focus movement. This could be, if you didn't do a good morning first, it could be a good morning variation. It could be a stiff leg deadlift. It could be something that hammers your posterior chain. And you're gonna do 4 to 6 sets of 6 to 8 reps. Next, we're going into something unilateral, a Bulgarian split squat, a lunge, a step up, a single leg press if you wanted, something where you work your legs independently of each other. And you're doing 3 to 5 sets of 8 to 12 reps. Next, we're doing something posterior chain again, but less aggressive. So if Glute ham raises aren't terribly hard for you, or reverse hypers aren't terribly hard for you, or banded good mornings. Kettlebell swings, you've got a lot of options. Something posterior chain again, but not quite as stressful for the same 3 to 5 sets of 8 to 12 reps. And last, we're gonna hammer your abs. I don't care how you do it. It can be a weighted plank. It can be weighted sit-ups. It can be side bends, ab wheel, whatever you want. Hammer your abs. If you're doing them really hard and heavy, maybe it's 2 or 3 sets. If you're doing like hanging leg raises, maybe it's 5 sets of 10. Work them hard. You should feel it. If you don't feel it, do more. Next, we're going into the max effort upper body lift. So you're gonna start this the exact same way you did your max effort lower. You're gonna pick a heavy upper body movement, some type of pressing. We're talking about strongman, so this is very likely to be an incline press or an overhead press of some variation. You're gonna build up to a 3 to 5 rep max. Do the same thing. Cut your weight 25 to 30% and hit a rep out set. Then everything else is gonna be the same as your first day. You're gonna have the heavy triceps, the horizontal pull, the vertical pull, and then the shoulder, arm, and rear delt isolation work. Just pick different exercises. Then your day number 1. Do different movements, not the same movements as your first day of the week. Moving into our final day, dynamic effort lower. So similar to dynamic effort upper, you're gonna be doing percentage work on a box squat. And for strongman, the box squat is gonna be parallel or just slightly above, like very slightly. Like not enough that people on the internet make fun of you, but close, just slightly above parallel. And the first week, you're gonna do 10 sets of 2. The second week, you're gonna do 8 sets of 2. And the third week, you're gonna do 6 sets of 2. Now, 10, 8, 6, all of 2, with the same percentages as upper body day. So 50%, 55%, 60%, plus 25% accommodating resistance on top of that at lockout. So if you can squat 100 pounds, the first week is 10 sets of 2 at 50 pounds of bar weight and 25 pounds of accommodating resistance at the top of your squat. That is mandatory. It's squat, accommodating resistance, those sets, those reps, those percentages, all of it. After that, you're going to lower body strongman movements. Up to you what you do here. Maybe it's Atlas stones, maybe it's frame carry, maybe it's farmers. You're gonna rotate through different exercises every 2 to 3 weeks. If you don't feel you can make progress on an exercise, you're gonna switch it. And you're gonna do something else for a couple weeks and figure out where your weak link was and build that into your heavy lower body day. You figure out, man, my glutes are the reason I can't move well with my frame or my yoke, whatever it happens to be. Cool, hammer that problem on your heavy lower body day, your day 2, and then come back and test it in 2, 3, 4 weeks. But when it comes to events, I'd likely pick two, maybe 3 lower body based strongman events. Your first one is gonna be hard and heavy. Your second one is gonna be medium, and your third one is gonna be mostly technique work if you do a third. Do not blow yourself into dust. You should be beating your previous performances on these. And you can keep a record. This is my 20-foot yoke weight. This is my 50-foot yoke weight. This is my 30-foot farmers, my 50, my 100-foot farmers. This is my tire for 100 feet. This is my best tire for 50 feet. Keep records and look at the ones you can beat. And strategically try to continually beat these week on week. That is how you formulate a conjugate program for strongman. Now, there's a couple things that you really need to know when it comes to making this work. Number 1, you have to think. With a conjugate program, you have to be very, very thoughtful about the movements you're doing, why you're doing them, what you want to get out of them, and then you have to test your hypothesis and see if you get it. So I think that a 2-board close grip bench is going to build up my triceps because I struggle with locking out my log. Did it work? And if it didn't work, why don't you think it worked? Did it not work because your close grip was too close? Or your board press, you had too close of a grip and you need to widen it out to the same grip width as your log. Maybe you need to do it with a Swiss bar to keep the neutral handles. I don't know. If I was coaching you, we'd be analyzing this together. Because you're doing it on your own with me as your YouTube guide, you're gonna have to do that thinking. But you need to think and test and then evaluate what you're doing based on what you notice. Next, and similar to that, you need to pick the movements that you need, not the movements that you want. It's cool that you're great at an incline dumbbell press. Awesome. If that's not carrying over to the events you want to get better at, Switch the movement. It's often going to be the movements you don't enjoy doing because you suck at them that will make you better at the events you want to improve at. I'm a victim of this too. Like, do I want to do a good morning? No, I don't want to do a good morning. I want to do a deficit deadlift because I'm great at those. But good morning builds the weaknesses that I personally have, so I need to keep it in my program. Focus on needs, not wants. What will drive your performance, not what will make you have the most fun in that individual workout. Next, small rotations are better. There's this idea with conjugate training that, oh man, one week I did a safety bar squat with chains and bands in a 14-inch box. So next week I'm doing an overhead squat while a plane flies behind me and my cat meows and wags its tail or whatever. Keep the variation small. Going from a grip here to a grip an inch wider might be enough of a variation to get some carryover for you. Going from a 50-foot tire flip to a 40, or a thick tire to a thinner tire might be enough variation to cause a change. When you're rotating lifts, when you're rotating events, when you're making any changes to your program, keep them fairly small. Unless you have a really good reason for a big change, make small changes. I was doing my arm isolation with a straight bar push down, and now I'm going to do it with a rope. Cool, that's a different variation. It's fresh enough. You don't have to do something drastic. Small changes, and you're going to slowly try to zero in on what has the best effect for you, at least right now. And over time that'll change, and then maybe you make a bigger change to find the thing that works. But small tweaks week to week to week. Last, when you are rotating your movements, you're like, oh man, with conjugate, how often do I switch my exercises? I'm going to give you a really easy guide. And if you're not making progress with this, think about it and experiment with something else. But the easiest starting way to change them, your first lift on your heavy days. So this doesn't include your dynamic effort work. It's just your max effort lower and your max effort upper. You're going to change that every 2 to 3 weeks. If you don't think you can make progress the next week, let's say you've done strict log press as your heavy upper body movement for 2 weeks in a row, and you don't think you can make progress next week, change it. Maybe do axle. But maximum, you're going to do it 3 weeks in a row, as long as you think you can keep making progress. So 2 to 3 weeks is how long you're going to keep your first heavy movement. For your second movement, which is again fairly heavy, that's your heavy tricep movement or your heavy posterior chain movement. You're going to change that every 4 weeks. You're going to keep hammering on it for 4 weeks in a row, and then you're going to change it. Everything else, every other movement in your plan, if you can't make progress for 2 straight weeks, you're going to change the movement. That might mean that you're hammer curling as your isolation movement for 6 weeks in a row. Cool. As long as you're making progress on the movement and you're making progress towards your goals, you're going to keep it until you have 2 weeks of no movement on that lift. That's how you're going to do that. And the last thing, on your dynamic effort overhead. I am guilty of this. I loved push jerking my log because my lower body was a lot more powerful and explosive than my shoulders, which is kind of lame, but I'm willing to be honest with you about it. On your dynamic effort overhead, you're going to strict press it or you're going to push press it. You are not doing any other variations. You're not push jerking. You're not split jerking. If your shoulders are brutally strong, push pressing your dynamic work is fine. If your shoulders are not brutally strong, you should probably strict press it. But that is a lesson that Louis had to pound into my head on my dynamic effort work, and I hated it, but it helped me a lot. So I'm giving it to you as well. And that's it. That is how you build your own conjugate program for Strongman. Try it out. Let me know how it goes and drop any questions in the comments below.